What's up, Earthrockers? It's your boy Shovatar, here again for another tier list video. This is going to be a tier list where I rank every single sub-weapon and every single spell from the Harmony of Dissonance, and I'm also going to be ranking a few other things, the weapon pickups, and actually that's about it. This tier list, by the way, is fucking insane. This dude, for some reason, decided to include literally every piece of armor in the game in this tier list, which is like, I don't know why he did this. I don't know how you would rank the furniture. I mean, I guess I could do that, but I don't really want to. This is already probably going to be longer than it should be. Anyway, one thing that I want to note is that I am going to rank these items, or rather I'm going to rank the spells based on availability. And what availability is when in the game it becomes available. I'm going to take that into account when I decide how good or bad it is. And I did this in my Circle the Moon tier list too for the DSS cards, and I want to explain it a little bit more, like why I do that. And the reason is because I'm not just ranking these spells based off of like how powerful they are. I'm ranking them based off of like how helpful they are, or how helpful they would be in an actual full run of the game. And so that means that like the summon spells, for example, the black ones, are like, that's the last summoning spell, that's the last tome you can get. So however good any of these are, the fact of the matter is that they're only going to be helping you at all in the last part of the game after you get the Griffin Wing. So in the context of a full game run, you're not going to be as... Why do people do this? Hang on a sec. Okay, sorry, that bugs me. I know that's how they do it in school, but this is a tier list. This isn't a school. Excuse me for one moment. Anyway, so that's what I'm going to be doing, and the consequence of that is that you're going to be seeing a lot of like blue and some green and red in the higher tiers, and then black is going to be more towards the lower tiers. And to explain, I should also explain availability as it relates to the Wind Tome, because the Wind Tome is kind of a weird case where the Wind Tome is technically available third after the Ice and the Fire tomes, but in the route that I showcased in my full run of the game, I get the Wind book very, very late in the run. It's actually one of the last things I do in the entire run. It's like one of the last things I do before I go and fight Maxime and Dracula, and that's just because of the route that I take through the castles. But you can technically get Wind earlier than that, and depending on which sub-weapon you're going for, it might be worth it to do that. Because some of the Wind spells are really good and some Wind spells are really bad. It really just depends on which one. Because you only need the double jump to get to it. I guess I should note that, like, going and fighting the Minotaur, because the Wind Tome is behind the first Minotaur boss in the Reverse Castle, and fighting the Minotaur is pretty dangerous at low levels. If you fight him as soon as possible on hard mode, you are in danger of getting two-shot by him. But the boss is not that hard to no damage, so in terms of practicality of getting the Wind book easy, I would say that it's worth the risk for for any of the sub-weapons that have good Wind spells. I would say that it's probably worth going for. Anyway, enough talking, enough explanation, let's start ranking. So, the dagger, I'm actually going to put into S tier, even though it's generally not very good, and that's because it's because of the Maxime fight. If you watch my Maxime fight in my full game clear, then the dagger is the only tool that lets you consistently beat Maxime, because the reason the Maxime fight is so difficult is because, number one, it's very hard to approach him. You need to maintain a lot of distance pretty much the entire time. And number two, his clone attack is like almost impossible to consistently dodge or intercept or deal with without taking any damage. And the dagger is what lets you consistently damage him. There are a couple of different tools you can use for the clone attack, but the important thing is that the daggers will let you hit him consistently. And the reason why that's important is because you generally are going to want to use some kind of magic spell to respond to the clone attack. So you can't use your magic to both constantly damage him and react to the clone attack that he does, because you just don't have the MP to do that. So having a sub-weapon that you can use all the time to damage him, and then a spell you can use to react to the clone attack is optimal, and that's what the dagger lets you do. So that's why it's an S tier, even though generally it's not good, is because it's like the perfect tool for the hardest thing in the whole game, and that alone I think has to make it S tier for me. Dagger Fire, by contrast, is actually going to go in the lowest possible tier. The thing about Dagger Fire is that Dagger Fire is a big, like, screen... Like, it damages everything on the screen, but the problem is that the it, like, shoots a fireball, and the fireball moves pretty erratically, and there'll be times where I'll activate it, and the fireball will just, like, stay on one side of the screen and won't damage anything that I want it to damage. And there's a specific thing you're supposed to do with the Dagger Fire spell to make it generate more fireballs. It involves, like, pushing the directional keys somehow, but I couldn't figure it out. And if you just want to do damage to things on the screen, I feel like there are other tools to do that besides that don't require you to do like weird like button inputs, and anything that like just flat out does nothing part of the time for a big MP cost, I think has to rank among one of the worst spells in the game. It's possible that if you master the whole directional button thing, then I mean maybe it becomes one of the best spells in the game, but I really don't know, and the way that I couldn't figure out how the directional thing worked, so based off my experience with it, that's where I would put it. Ice Dagger is at A tier. Every ice spell is going to have an advantage from availability, just because you get ice first. Ice Dagger is actually really good. It's like 2 homing projectiles that do ice damage. It's really good at dealing with the lizard men early on in the Cave of Illusions off of the Marble Gallery, and then later on in the Aqueduct of Dragons, where it's really important to have consistent ice damage. It's cheap enough that you can use it to kill every pink fish guy in the first long hallway of the Aqueduct, which is like one of the most dangerous parts of the whole game. So it's good for that. It's also not bad on the devil fight because, like I said, it's homing, so you can just sit on the floor and shoot it at him over and over again until you're out of MP. And stuff like things like the devil fight and like the Maxime fight and the Aqueduct, like everything I just mentioned are huge problem areas, so it's helpful in all of these really dangerous situations. Dagger Lightning, I think I'm gonna put it in D tier, because it's kind of like Dagger Fire, where like most of the time it kind of does nothing. Because the way that the Lightning Dagger works is that you shoot sparks up into the air, and then approximately 20 years later they fall back down from the sky and damage everything. And when you cast a spell, like in Harmony of Dissonance, you kind of want it to do something right away. Like when you do something, you want the consequence of what you did to happen fast, because like you don't want to just be sitting there waiting, you want to be doing something. So if there's like an armor enemy that's weak to lightning that's in front of you, like, do you necessarily have the time to just sit there and wait for the lightning to fall from the sky, like before he revs up some projectile, or if it's like the level 2 Axe Knights before he like winds up a charge and becomes invincible? It just seems like it's a bad, it seems like a recipe for disaster. Or to be more specific, a recipe for inefficiency. And again, it's like, if you already have the dagger on, you'd probably be better off just shooting a couple of like ice daggers at him and watching him die, than dealing with that. So, not very good. Wind Dagger is another S tier, and it's, again, because of the Maxime fight. If you've ever played Symphony of the Night, or watched, or Rondo of Blood, or Dracula X, Wind Dagger is basically the Richter Dagger item crash, where he like plants in place and throws approximately 2,000 daggers at whatever's directly in front of him. That's what this is. And in the Maxime fight, Wind Dagger is the absolute best tool to respond to Maxime's clone attack. It's also really, really good in the Dracula, in Phase 2 of Dracula right afterwards, because Phase 2 of Dracula can have this, like, this overlap where, like, he'll shoot a laser at you that you're supposed to duck to avoid, but at the same time he'll send a claw attack at you, and you can get put in this awkward position of having to try to, like, slide kick out of the way of the claw, which doesn't always necessarily work. And it's like it's just a really awkward and really dangerous part of the fight, because the laser can hit for like a bunch of damage, and the claw can hit pretty hard too. And the thing that makes the Wind Dagger spell so good at dealing with that is the simple fact that it makes you invincible for so long. Casting spells gives you a certain number of iframes, and with the Wind Dagger, it's not like iframes, it's like seconds, because you're standing still just chucking daggers all in a line, so you've become invincible for a long time and avoid all the attacks, and you're doing damage at the same time you're doing it. You're doing pretty good damage too. So Wind Dagger is exceptional, even if you do have to go out of your way to get it. Another thing that I should mention is the dagger is only really good with Logoth's ring, which is the first like enhancement ring you can get for any of the sub-weapons. And like it's not like just that the dagger is good On Maxime, it's specifically that the Logoth's Ring Dagger, like where you throw 3 daggers at once, is really, really good. That's like what makes him, like, that's what turns him from like one of the hardest bosses in the game to like a target dummy. It's amazing. Summon Dagger. I'm gonna have a hard time ranking the summon spells because the summon spells are almost all the same, where it's like you spend a lot of MP to do damage to things like everything on the screen, which is not really as useful as you might think it is. In Harmony of Dissonance, there's actually very few spots that I can think of where the screen is like really crowded with enemies. The GBA doesn't usually try to like exert itself that hard, so the summon spells are usually kind of not good unless you are using them to like do a bunch of damage to a boss. But the problem with that is that by the time you get the summoning tome, most bosses in the game are going to be dead. Like all you have left is really like the Cyclops and I guess Dracula and Maxime. And if you already have the dagger and you're fighting Maxime and you need a response to the clone attack, use Dagger Wind. So I am debating between D or E tier. I guess I'll say D tier because I think there was at least one point in the whole run where I used it. But actually no, it's going into E tier because like every time that I was thinking about because in the reverse Wailing Way, there are like the bouncing pillars with the dragon skulls on top that shoot fireballs, and like there are a couple spots where you want to like hit them from a place of absolute safety, but you can just hit them with Ice Dagger and it'll home in on them and kill them. So there are actually 0 situations that I can think of where this would be helpful, which is, if that's not F tier, then like what is? Anyway, next, so those are the daggers, pretty symmetrical. That's nice. Axe. The axe is, so when I evaluate sub-weapons and there's not like an obvious benefit to them, like with the dagger, the dagger is in S tier because of the Maxime fight. Like that's just it. But my general evaluation for sub-weapons is going to be, does the weapon significantly increase my range of attack? That's like the first thing that I think about, is does this let me attack from angles or from distances that I couldn't attack before? And the axe is really good at that. It's one of the best at that actually, because it lets you hit things above you. But the big problem with the axe in Harmony of Dissonance is that it's just too expensive and it doesn't do enough damage. It's like the axe problem in every Castlevania game after Rondo. The axe just does not do enough damage. So I have to put it in C tier, even though I feel like it should be way higher. It's this killer combination of like you're spending all your hearts to do not that much damage. Like I'm thinking of the devil fight, especially. Like on the devil fight, I was expecting this thing to shred, but it just is so like pathetic, and it's just not good enough, which is unfortunate. I mean, it's not awful. It can deal with harpies kind of. But again, it's the expense. And with the harpies, the challenge with the harpies is not necessarily like getting them off your screen. The challenge is killing them. And if you're hitting them with an attack that doesn't do that much damage, all you're doing is just delaying their death, because now you've knocked them off the screen and you didn't even take that much health off. So yeah, I don't think I can put it any higher than this just because of how disappointing it is. Maybe, I don't know, maybe B tier. Maybe am I feeling generous? Okay, alright, B tier. B tier, like, very begrudgingly, I would say. Although, actually, no, I can't put it in B tier. It's gotta be C. It's gotta be C. I'm sorry for going back and forth like this, but it's tough. I can't, it's just so bad. like, it's such a shame. Especially in a game like Harmony of Dissonance where you get the double jump so early, and, like, it's so hard to justify taking this over anything else. Because double jump means you can kind of get like control over the air, and it's like, yeah, it's just not that good. Fire Axe, I'm gonna say is also C tier because it's not awkward the way that like Lightning Dagger is. Fire Axe basically summons like 2 big like fire serpents that like spread out around you and do a bunch of damage. To things. It's actually kind of like a summoning card in that way, but it's available earlier, which is important, and it's not as expensive as a summoning card, which is also important. And it's really good at taking like a few chunks of health off of like the first Legion boss that you fight in the Skyway, and that's honestly pretty much it. but that's like better than nothing. And it's like if you really do need to like just kill everything around you, this is a good option. And again, you get it early. But the problem with getting it early, and the problem with everything that it's praised for, is that it's competing with Ice Axe, which is an easy S tier. The axe sucks, but Ice Axe is really good, because what Ice Axe does is it summons like a comet of ice that falls down and from a set distance in front of you, and that's important because, or rather, and okay, I'm getting ahead of myself. A comet falls down like a set distance in front of you. Because it's like, but because it has this relatively small range of like attack, because you have to aim it, because it doesn't home in, because it doesn't cover the entire screen, the devs felt like it was safe to make it do a ton of damage. But the thing is, it comes down super fast, and it hits like everything in the air. I think it can hit multiple things. It can hit things multiple times. Like, you can just demolish things with Axe Ice. It's good against the plants in the caverns. It destroys the mermen in the aqueduct, which is always super important. Like, if you have the axe, you will spend almost all of your time with Axe Ice on, and you will never use the regular axe subweapon once you have this. That's, or at least I wouldn't recommend ever not using Ice Axe when you have the axe subweapon on. And like, Ice Axe is good for the devil too. It's like what you would use to kill the devil, because the axe sure shit isn't going to do it. It's like really good. It's one of the best spells in the whole game. It's just a shame that it's stapled to the axe. Axe Lightning. Axe Lightning is very similar to Axe Fire, so I'm going to put it in the same tier, where it's like a screen covering spell, where it's like you shoot lightning out of your hand and it hits pretty much everything around you all at the same time and does like okay damage. But it's expensive, so you can't do it that much. So it's only like a, and it like does like as much damage as Ice Axe does. So, and like has like 4 times the cost. So unless you need to kill a bunch of things all at the same time, again, like this is the problem with these spells. Like they are setting you up. They're tools to solve a problem that doesn't exist in Harmony of Dissonance, generally speaking. Whereas, like, these are tools to solve problems that you encounter constantly. Anyway, sorry about that. I had to go turn something off. Anyway, what's next? Wind Axe F tier, or E tier. Now I'm doing it. The Wind Axe spell, like, drops an axe in place that, like, rotates. Does not effectively stop Maxime's clone attack. I don't remember why, but I just remember that it doesn't do it. And anything in Harmony of Dissonance, like, this is a perfect example. Like, this fails like the sub-weapon test, where it's like, does this increase my range of attack? No, it leaves a stationary hazard. And if the enemies don't literally just walk into it, then like it's doing literally nothing. So if you're gonna drop something right in front of you to do damage, why not just whip whatever's in front of you? It's terrible. It's another spell that I never found occasion to use. And as a consequence, it's not worth going out of your way for. Summon Axe. Summon Axe. B tier. It's B tier only because it's the best available option for the axe to deal with Maxime's clone attack, because it makes you invincible for a long time like all the summon spells do. It clears out all the clones. It'll probably hit him maybe once or twice for like 115 or 230. It's really, it's just sort of like a serviceable summoning option, and it's tough for me to put it that high when it's like a summoning spell, but it's useful. Like, I found an important use for it in a run where I was using the axe, so I just kind of have to. I feel like I should give the axe a bit of a break. Maybe I'm being nicer than I should, but that's where it is. Cross. I would say the cross is also going to go B tier. Because the cross sort of like barely, it barely passes like the first sub-weapon litmus test of does this increase my range of motion. The answer is that yes it does, but it kind of barely does. The thing about the cross, the cross is similar to the axe where it's like, it's also too expensive basically. But unlike the axe, it actually does give you a benefit that I think is proportional to the expense, which is that it actually does a lot of damage if you can line it up correctly on enemies. The thing about it that's disappointing is that it doesn't. The ring that buffs it kind of makes it worse because the thing that makes the ring that buffs it makes it go faster. Oh, I should say that that's a similar problem that the axe has, where the ring that buffs it kind of makes it worse because it makes it go slower and doesn't go as high up in the air. And I think the idea is that like you throw it and then it like deals more damage to something because it's like hovering in the air and it's ticking damage over and over again, but like it doesn't go up as high. So you've now reduced your range of influence, which is never a good idea. But to go back to the cross, I just remember being kind of underwhelmed by the cross, where like it's not like it isn't Circle the Moon, because unlike Nathan, Juiced can like do has like tools to do damage generally speaking, so he doesn't need a specific sub-weapon to do that. And I think the cross was just not really what I was expecting it to be. I don't know. Do I put it in A tier? No, because it's mostly redundant. It doesn't like solve any like problems that the whip can't solve, generally speaking. So that means that like it can't. I feel like it can't be above B tier for that reason. So there you go. Crossfire. This one's weird. I'm gonna put it in C tier because I found like at least one use for it. I found like a couple uses for it. What Crossfire does is you throw like a big metal crucifix that kind of like spins and hovers in place until it contacts something, at which point it like erupts into more like fire whirls and like damages things around it. It's mostly good for to like give you something to do with your MP on the Talos fight, because Talos is not weak to ice, and you want to do something with your MP, and the other options are not really like great for that. So it's basically just like a stronger version of the cross, and it's just something to spend your MP on. And it's important because you want to start spending your MP on stuff early, and cross ice is like kind of mediocre. Well, no, you know what? I take that back. Cross ice is B tier. Because, but it's being carried pretty hard by the fact that it's an ice spell. Because the way that cross ice works is that you activate it and then like a big chunk of ice floats behind you. And if there's an enemy nearby, then every once in a while the chunk of ice will fire off a couple of like icicles at the enemy. The problem is that the chunk of ice like aims at the enemy. So if the enemy moves at all, it could just miss every attack. But the reason that I'm putting it up in B tier anyway is because it does ice damage. It's pretty good at consistently killing the pink fish dudes in the Aqueduct of Dragons. And what's neat is the fact that the ice block that's floating behind you doesn't it doesn't do anything unless an enemy is nearby. So you're spending MP to basically conserve damage, and you can start like regenerating it from there. It's not going to be wasted. It's not going to be using like resources on stuff that's not there, because it only activates if something is nearby. And I feel like that's unique among all of the, well, almost all of the spells, which is pretty special. So I guess B tier is where I would put it. The other reason it's not up in A tier is because it's unreliable and because it can't like hit the devil or anything like that. Cross electric is the cross item crash from Rondo, where Juice will like hover in place and crosses will like spin around him and do damage to everything around him. Normally I would not like this because it doesn't extend your range of influence at all, but what it does do is it does mega damage, and it makes you invincible for a pretty good chunk of time. So for that reason, I'm actually going to put it in B tier. It's good on like the Pazuzu fight to clear out the devils that get summoned and also do a bunch of damage to him. If you can ever like safely get next to something and trigger it, it's pretty good. And the fact that the crosses extend upwards means it can do damage to enemies that are above you, which could be important. Unfortunately, I don't think... Unfortunately, you don't get it until after the devil fight, so it's not really any good on that, but... It's just pretty powerful. It's like there's not that many places where you can use it, but if you can use it, it's going to be really, really good. And I think that's good enough for B tier. Crosswind, I'm actually going to say Crosswind is A tier. So the cross is like the first or the second sub-weapon that I would say it's worth going out of your way to get the wind tome for. Mostly, this is something that I would say is A tier for like a newer playthrough. Like a playthrough if you're not super familiar with the game. Because what Crosswind does is it creates this like giant rotating shield of crosses around you that are kind of like cross ice in that if they come into contact with something, they like get depleted, and then like one by one the crosses will disappear until there are none left. But the thing is that it's not based off of time. It's based off of like intercepting things and taking damage. So you are always going to get your full, like the full value out of it one way or another. And also the shield is absolute. It's like rotating all the way around you, and it's got a pretty long range. So it'll intercept anything like flying that's coming at you. It'll totally clock block the harpies, I'm pretty sure. And it can be good like in other general situations. And you can get it before the devil fight, although I don't necessarily know how good it would be. I had never really tried that out, because I guess the problem with that is that you have to get close to the devil to get full value from it, and you don't really generally want to do that. So I don't know. But still, I think it's good as like a strong defensive option. It's kind of like a good Jupiter card from Circle of the Moon, where it's just constantly protecting you from whatever shit is coming at you. Cross summon. I can barely even fucking remember, which must mean that it's not that good. I will also note that on as far as the Maxime fight is concerned, you're kind of up shit's creek with the cross. You pretty much just have to use a summon like you do with the axe, but I feel like the cross summon is more expensive than the axe and does pretty much the same thing, and I feel like I didn't use it as much. And maybe wind cross? No, I bet Maxime's clones just tear through wind cross. I guess if it's useful in the Maxime fight, I guess I'll put it under C. The only reason it's not up in B with Summon Axe, even though I put Summon Axe there for the same reason, because it's more expensive, so you can't like do it as much. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of lukewarm on the summon spells in general. Most of them are kind of not very interesting and are kind of like all do the same thing. So not super enthusiastic. Anyway, Holy Water. Holy Water is A tier. Because it's actually better at extending your range of influence than the cross is, which is usually the opposite of how Holy Water works. But the thing about Holy Water is that you can throw it underneath you. You can like jump over things and throw it under you, and once you get the Chaos Ring, I think it's called, once you get the ring that buffs the Holy Water, it increases its range by a bunch, so it can hit things like all the way across the screen and do a bunch of damage, because the fire goes further and like lingers longer, so it like ticks for a bunch of damage on whatever it is you encounter. Really good for that. Yeah, I can't the only reason it's not an S tier is because it's not like a perfect silver bullet the way that the dagger is, but it's like really good. It's one of the best sub weapons in the game. Fire Holy Water. Fire Holy Water has a couple of good applications. It summons like a little fireball that like rolls around and like zooms out towards enemies and like then kind of bounces back. It's really good actually against any boss that you fight in like an enclosed room. Any boss that like stands on the ground in an enclosed room. So I guess that would be like the Cyclops, both Minotaurs, the Golem, Talos. It's really good against Talos. A lot of things like that. So that's pretty high praise. But I don't know if I'm trying to decide between B and A tier. It is pretty expensive. I think I have to say B tier because it's not good. Like the thing. Okay, the thing about the spells that are all up here is that they're either like good all the time or really, really good in one specific, really important situation. And this isn't really like that in either one. Like, it's good in the Talos fight, but the Holy Water is also good in the Talos fight, and you could just use the Holy Water, so I don't know. It's tough for me to really, I don't think I can put it up with everything else, unfortunately. The only thing about the Holy Water that, like, sucks is the fact that it doesn't really, it doesn't increase your vertical range of influence at all. But again, in Harmony of Dissonance, that isn't as big a deal as it would be in other Castlevania games. Holy Water Ice. Holy Water Ice. Okay, I literally can't remember what this does. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna. Oh no, I do remember what it does. Right. This is fucking S tier, actually. Sorry, I can't believe I forgot this. So this is S tier because it falls under the category of good all the time. Because what it does is it will like summon these three, like it's like condensation. It'll summon like 3 blocks of ice on an enemy and then shatter them all. And it just picks an enemy on the screen. It doesn't matter where it is. It doesn't matter if it's above you or below you or across the fucking room for you. If it's on the screen, it will hit it, and it will hit it pretty much every time. This will demolish the harpies in the clock tower. This demolishes the mermen in the aqueduct. This is like so good, and it's so fitting that ice is the first spellbook you get, and ice is also like the most important element in the game because it's the most helpful during some of the toughest parts, that being the aqueduct and then the clock tower. Which is why there's so much blue in the top tiers and why that trend is going to continue. So, yes, I can't believe I almost forgot about that. Yeah, this is good against the devil. This is good against any enemy in the game. Lightning Holy Water. Lightning Holy Water. This is another one that I don't actually initially remember. I want to say... Okay, no, now I remember. Yeah, that's this one. This shoots... This shoots lightning out of your hands? It's embarrassing that I don't remember this. Hang on 1 second. Oh, okay, yeah, well, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, now I know why I don't remember it. It's because it's actually not very good. Yeah, this is D tier. It's kind of similar to Dagger Lightning, where it basically summons like a thunderbolt that falls down and then kind of like wanders around and like maybe it'll hit something. But you don't have that much control over it, and actually you don't have any control over it. It just kind of wanders back and forth, and it's like if there's anything right next to you, then I guess it's good at hitting it. But like, I think there was one place in the whole game where I used it. Now I remember. I used it on the skeleton spiders in the skeleton cave. The normal skeleton cave with the ones like the centaur skeleton spiders, because like it hit above them and then it hit like on their bodies a lot. But like that's like one part of the whole game, which is exactly the same spot actually where I think I used the dagger bolt. So if you get used like exactly once, you get saved from F tier and you get put up in D tier. So there you go. Wind Holy Water is the Holy Rain item crash from Rondo, and it's tricky for me because it's like So it's one of several sub-weapon spells that just like do damage to everything on the screen, but the thing is that it's the best at doing damage to everything. You know what? Fuck it. A tier. Because sometimes you do just want to do a bunch of damage to everything on the screen, and the big crucial difference between this and other ones that are like that is that this is affordable, and it actually hits everything on the screen. Like, it's not like it'll throw like some fire around that'll maybe hit things. No. It'll consistently hit everything on the screen for its entire duration, and it's available early. So, like way before any summoning tome is. So I think that's good enough for A tier. It took me a second, but I came to a decision. Speaking of summoning tomes, the thing about Holy Water Summon is that the thing about Holy Water Summon is the Holy Water Summon is like the best summon in the entire game. Because every summon just deals like stupid damage to everything on the screen, but this deals like the most damage out of anything in the game. But I'm actually going to put it in B tier because it's only really practical to utilize on the Dracula fight. That is like a one-use thing, but it's a one-use thing that's pretty important. And it's a one-use that's like really dramatic, because it'll do a ton of damage to Dracula. It'll do like, I think the Holy Water Summon ticks for like 197 or something insane like that at level 43 or 44, so if it ticks that like multiple times, then you're probably looking at like 800 fucking damage on Dracula, which is pretty important. As far as how you deal with Maxime with the Holy Water, I honestly can't remember what I did. I want to say I probably just used a summon, so I guess it's there for the same reason that Summon Axe is there. Except it'll fuck Maxime up pretty hard. Harder than any of the other summons will do. I don't know, maybe that could... No, I can't justify putting like a summon spell in A tier. That's not really... I just can't do it, because like the summon tome is just like... The summon tome could just not be in the game at all, and the only thing that would change is that the Maxime fight would be even harder if you use any sub-weapon, except for the dagger. Speaking of good sub-weapons, Bible S tier. The Bible is good all the time. The Bible increases your effective range to the entire screen. It hits everything on the entire screen every single time you use it. You can just sit on the floor with the Bible or like sit on the edge of the screen and just kill anything that's around you if you have the hearts to do it. It is the best sub-weapon in the entire game. And it is not close, in my opinion. Again, the only reason the dagger is in the same tier with it is because of the Maxime fight. It wasn't for that, that would not be there. But the Bible, like, I knew the Bible was good from playing Rondo. I picked it up, and then I pretty much used nothing but the Bible for the first, like, half dozen clears of the entire game. The only reason I ever used anything else was specifically so I could make this tier list and, like, figure out which of these is actually good. Fire Bible, B tier. It's like a lot of fire spells, it's like pretty good on a couple bosses. Good at doing a lot of damage, but it's just too expensive. And it's not good for like general usage, so... I should say what it does. It summons like a fire tornado in front of you that does like good ticking damage. It's pretty good against the devil and against the Legion boss, but the thing is that those are both like... Just using the Bible in general is also really good against them. So I guess it's like a good synergy thing where like you have something to do with your magic and something to do with your hearts, but like it's not spectacular and it's not generally useful. Bible Ice, another S tier, falls under the heading of always useful. This summons like fire waves, like ice fire waves along the ground that hit everything on the ground around you. They can tick multiple times. And there's a cool trick you can do with this where if you're fighting a boss that's up against a wall and you trigger this, the wave of flames will like go towards the boss, hit the wall, and then keep spawning like flame waves until the spell is depleted. And the way that plays out in the game is that the boss is up against the wall and fire keeps spawning on it and keeps ticking on it over and over and over and over again. I'm pretty sure I do that in at least one boss fight in my full clear of the game, but I don't remember which one it is. I think it might be one of the Minotaurs. But I try to do it on any boss that involves a wall, like Talos, Minotaurs, Living Armor, Cyclops. And if you can do it, it's totally worth it, because it'll just rack up like a mega damage super fast, like nothing else does. And you can do it from a safe distance. You can do it as far away as you want. So, like, yeah, this is really, 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 really good. Easy S tier. Lightning Bible is going to be the only lightning spell that will rise above B tier, because it's actually very similar to Crosswind, where it creates a protective shield. Instead of Crosswind, it's a protective shield that's directly in front of you. It's these two, like, lightning orbs that, like Crosswind, will, like, get smaller and smaller as you take more damage, or as they intercept more damage and, like, hit more enemies. But the difference is that I think is that it does better damage generally than Wind Cross does. Like, Bible Lightning, if you use it on, like, the Peeping Eye in the Clock Tower, will, like, just melt it, pretty much. I think I'm kind of losing my voice, so I gotta go fast through the rest of this. Really, really good. Definitely, like, a good defensive option if you're not sure what's gonna happen to you. And sometimes in the Clock Tower, the harpies will, like, fly into you with this, and you'll just, like, kill them, because it ticks for, like, 80 or something, and it'll just, like, tick on them 3 times and kill them. It's really fun. It is kind of annoying because it... it's kind of annoying because you can't get rid of it once it's on. You have to, like, run around and explicitly, like, deliberately deplete it if you want to swap and use something else, but that's not a huge deal. That's more of, like, an incidental thing. Wind Bible, F tier. Sorry about that. Had to go stretch my legs, get some water, take a break. Where was I? Wind Bible. Wind Bible, D tier. The only thing that saves, because it's pretty much the same as Wind Cross, but it's just worse. It creates, like, rotating books around you that protect you, but the problem is that the protection shield is temporary. It's based on time, unlike Crosswind and Bible Bolt. And that's bad because it means you don't know when you're not going to be protected anymore. So it's impossible to consistently, like, play around it because you just don't know when you're going to be shit out of luck or not. Bible Summon. Bible Summon is actually pretty funny. It summons, like, a little fairy with a big hammer that flies up to something and bonks it on the head and does, like, 300 damage. So, purely because I think that's funny, it's gonna go in C tier. Otherwise it would be D tier, because I think I did only use it once, but I think it's funny, so it's C tier. Okay, last sub-weapon. The Sacred Fist. Sacred Fist is a weird-ass sub-weapon. Did I even explain what the Bible does? The Bible, you throw the Bible, and the Bible, like, flies all over the screen and, like, kills everything. That's, like, the best way that I can describe it. And what's especially good about it is the fact that the ring that upgrades it actually makes it worse, so you don't need to worry about devoting a inventory slot for that. It basically turns it into, like, a rotating shield around you, so it completely erases what makes the Bible so good, which is the fact that it vastly increases your sphere of influence. That's just another thing that makes it the best. Anyway, Sacred Fist. Not good. I would say D tier. Only thing saving it from F tier is the fact that you get it so soon, and because it's, like, useful at the very, very start of the game. I mean, all the sub-weapons have that advantage, but it's a sub-weapon. I feel like I can't put a sub-weapon in F tier. So what the Sacred Fist does is you get stapled to the floor and you punch enemies in front of you. Your fists are flying out very rapidly, but the actual ticking damage happens relatively slowly. And this is, like, the worst thing you could ever do in a Castlevania game, is stay in one place and do slow ticking damage to something in front of you, because you don't get iframes of this thing. You don't become invincible when you use this. It's pretty much god awful. And you're just, every time you use it, you're begging to die. If you're using it in a completely safe situation, then it's not worth using in the first place. It's barely faster than just whipping enemies, and I don't think it even has any farther horizontal range. Maybe a little bit, but less than the animation would suggest. So this is the worst sub-weapon in the whole game. It's terrible, it's dangerous, it's risky. I can't say enough bad things about it. Fire Fist, on the other hand, is actually really, really, really good. I'm going to put it in A tier. Fire Fist creates like these 4 like sparkling fireballs that fan out away from you and do a bunch of damage to enemies, not just on contact, but the projectiles sustain themselves actually for a really long time. And if they're still hitting things that they're coming into contact with, they'll keep doing ticking damage. And you can actually like fire them off and then move forward, and they'll like follow you a fair way forward before they finally dissipate. So you can almost use it as like a protective, like a preemptive thing before you go into like, before you go towards like the bombers in the Castle B treasury, for example, the bomber armors, which are like the most dangerous enemy in the game. It's really good at dealing with them, because God knows you don't want to use the fucking fists on them. And then against bosses, like against Legion, it's really good. Against a lot of things, it's really, really good. It's like it's actually the first thing about the fist that's good, because Ice Fist is F tier. Worst ice spell in the game. What it does is you get like a big shard of ice around your fist, and then you fucking fly forward towards enemies. So unless you just killed whatever was in front of you, you basically just walked into an enemy for no reason. And it tries to make up for it, because it, like, it makes you invincible for a while, so the game is like trying to compensate because it knows it's a terrible idea, but it's just not good enough. Because you fly towards something and then you kind of hover back a bit, but like what if the enemy walked towards you? And like if you didn't kill the enemy, like you're just gonna bonk into it and take damage. So it's like, if you're trying to use this on the lizard men early in the game, you're just gonna hit them, or you're just gonna walk into them. And you might be thinking, well, what if you kill them, right? Like what if you weaken them first, then you zoom forward and finish them off? Like, isn't that safe? Okay, yes, but now you're doing exactly the same thing that a slide kick could do. And slide kicks are free, they don't cost any NP, and you always know exactly how much damage they're going to do. You don't have to worry about like some random elemental weakness or elemental resistance you don't know about. You know what I mean? So it's basically worthless. And there's a thing about it that makes it particularly worthless that I'm going to talk about in a little bit. For now, I'm going to talk about Fist Lightning. Fist Lightning is C tier. It's C tier because I think it's like supposed to be good, because you like raise your fist and you shoot out like these 3 lightning bolts, but whether or not enemies get hit by all 3 lightning bolts seems like it seems inconsistent. I don't know what causes it or doesn't cause it. And honestly, talking about this is completely irrelevant, because the fist gives you access to Fist Wind, which is the best spell in the entire game in terms of general usage. So what Wind Fist does is you basically summon like a Hadouken that zooms through the air super fast and does 1,000,000 damage. It's like Diana Griffin in Circle the Moon. If you don't know what Diana Griffin in Circle the Moon is, it's a projectile that does 1,000,000 damage. Like, this is so good. It's shocking. This is like you go and kill the Minotaur in the Castle B like top floor, and you get the Wind Book, and it's like the game just gave you a rocket launcher. It's actually insane. It does 1,000,000 damage. It penetrates. It'll go through multiple enemies. It can hit the same enemy more than once if it's big enough. It's like, it becomes like your primary method of attacking for the rest of the entire game. Harmony of Dissonance becomes Hadouken Simulator 2002. It's actually fucking bonkers how powerful it is. And it's like, and it's so fucked up that like you could very easily just get the Wind Book at the end of the game and not even have this until you're about to go fight Dracula. So if any of these sub-weapons, you should go out of your way to get the Wind Book first, absolutely with the Sacred Fist, because this is like, it's like it becomes a completely different game. A game where you just fucking kill everything you see, as long as you're MP. This is the only sub-weapon that made me put on Cypher's Charm. Cypher's Charm is an accessory you can get from the Legion corpse boss in the Skeleton Cave in Castle A that increases your mana regeneration rate. And I slapped that shit on immediately because I want to just do nothing but use Fist Wind the entire fucking game. So, like, every single other Fist spell, like, is irrelevant. The Sacred Fist itself is irrelevant. You pick this up purely to get Wind Fist and nothing else. So I might as well not even fucking rank fucking Summon Fist D tier, whatever. Maybe you use it. Like, who cares? That is the one thing. On the Maxime fight, you want to use this on Maxime the whole time. So you're kind of like up shit's creek when it comes to how you deal with Maxime's summon attack. The ring that buffs Sacred Fist increases its like scope, it increases its like cone and its range. So that might be good for dealing with the summons, but the problem with that is that if you want to use that with Cypher's Charm, you've now run out of inventory slots, because if you're fighting Maxime and you want to get the best ending, you have to have both bracelets on. So if you have both bracelets on and Cypher's Charm, you now don't have room for the Aurora ring, which is the ring that buffs the fist. So you have to, like, choose between the charm and the ring, and if you don't have MP, you're just kind of sitting there not doing anything, so not having the charm on feels like shit. So, as is all too often the case with the Maxime fight, you're kind of put in this annoying no-win situation, but... So, like, you should probably just take your chances and try to, like, whip flail the clones or something. I don't know. I don't know, man. Fuck it. It doesn't matter. Like, whatever. Just pick up the dagger before the end of the game. But, like, play the rest of the game with the fucking fist and just have fun with Fist Wind. That's my suggestion. Just fuck up Maxime with the daggers, but for everything else, use the fist. Because it's, like, it's crazy how fun it is. Home stretch. Weapon upgrades. Crushing Stone as a combat tool, worthless. You might think, because the Crushing Stone is a thing that you use to break down walls in Harmony of Dissonance, and you might think, like, because you, like, charge up an attack and then you release an attack and then you do, like, more damage, so you might think that would be useful in a combat context for, like, one-shotting things, but, you know, not really. Not really, dude. Because it's just not, like... It's just too awkward. It just adds a whole new dimension to combat that's totally irrelevant, and you would be better off just doing a damage a bit at a time with one whip swing at a time. Like, you don't, like, I don't know. I don't want to walk around, like, with the fucking B button held down the whole time. It would be nice if it was better, because then you could utilize it for, you could utilize it, like, instead of swapping back and forth once you get it, like, because shortly after you get it, the game loves making you break a bunch of walls. Actually, the game likes making you break walls, like, generally speaking, so it would be nice if it was good, but it's just not good, so it's a moot point. Steel Tip. The first universal whip upgrade you get that's not dependent on, like, elemental weaknesses. A tier, I think I would say. It's useful, like, all the time. The only reason it's not an S tier is because you do get it kind of late. You get it in time for the Grim Reaper fight, which is good, but you don't get it in time for, like, the Aqueduct or the Clock Tower. Or, for that matter, the Castle Treasury, although that's kind of a moot point. But it's still, like, I mean, it's really good. It's hard to, like, not... It's hard to say anything, like, bad about it. It's just not, like... It's just not game-changing. It's really good, but it's not game-changing. That's the best way I can put it. Platinum Tip, I'm going to put one tier below, purely for availability reasons. By the time you get it, the game's basically almost over. All you have left to do is, like, the Reverse Wailing Way, which is pretty dangerous, but, like... A few extra damage on the whip is not necessarily going to be the make or break for your success in the Wailing Way. What's gonna make or break whether or not you survive the Wailing Way is whether or not you have a good way to kill the Bone Pillars and the Owls, probably. Because with the Simon Wraiths, they hit really hard, but if you just hit them with the whip, they'll stagger and you can just keep hitting them until they die. So, like, whip damage is not a huge deal. But it's still, like, nice, always good to have more damage on your whip. So it's still B tier, but it's not, like, super impactful or, like, game-changing. The Energy Circle, this is actually going to be an F tier. And I'm going to explain why. So the Energy Circle is a thing where it's a whip upgrade that means that if you hold down the B button, you spin your whip in a circle. And you have an ability like that in Circle of the Moon that lets you intercept, like, projectiles or weak enemies around you. In Harmony of Dissonance, there just aren't that many weak enemies. There's not that many weak enemies. There's not that many projectiles, there's not that many situations where you would be saying to yourself, boy, I could really use an energy circle right now. You might be thinking the Maxime fight with the clones, and kind of, maybe, like, sometimes, but that's it's just not consistent enough, in my opinion. And it has an availability issue, which is that if you want to get it as soon as it's available in the Shrine of the Apostates, then you have to go through a victory armor. And if you're playing on hard mode, or like honestly even if you're not playing on hard mode, fighting a victory armor at that point in the game is a risk that's just honestly not worth taking. Like, maybe if you have 1,000 hours in victory armor fight simulations and you can fight them like Neo in the Matrix fighting Agent Smith at the end, then go for it. But like, under general circumstances, I would say it's just not worth getting at all. Period. Bullet tip, exactly the same thing. The bullet tip sounds like it should be good, because it lets you shoot a fireball from the end of your whip if you're at full health. I mean, I could just stop right there, but I'll go on. Harmony of Dissonance is not a super hard game by the time you get the bullet tip, because in order to get the bullet tip, you need to have broken apart a wall in the normal skeleton cave, then go back to the reverse skeleton cave, which probably means you're past the Grim Reaper fight. So you're pretty powerful at that point, and you're not going to be encountering that much danger. So the bullet tip is available late in the game, which is automatically a problem. You have to be full health in order for it to do anything, so it has this obnoxious conditional, and in Harmony of Dissonance, it's not going to be hard at that point in the game, but you could definitely get nickel and dime down, or just like take incidental damage, and now you have to do more fucking menuing to swap to a weapon upgrade that would actually do something. And the cherry on top is that the fucking projectile you shoot doesn't even do any damage. It does like 12 damage. It's actually fucking ridiculous. Like, I remember like going and putting this on for the Maxime fight, because I thought like maybe like it did, this is like the substitute for the dagger. You can just sit on the floor and hit him from far away. 12 damage. 12 damage to Maxime. It's like a fucking joke. I don't know. The bullet tip is god awful. I like, maybe if it did like Diana damage, like Diana card damage from Circle the Moon, then like maybe I'd think about it, but like, it's just terrible. It's just terrible. All three of these are bad. Never worth using. Firestone is actually also pretty bad. But I'm putting it in C tier because it actually helps you, and because it's the first upgrade that you get. The only reason it's not higher is because it has the same problem that the Salamander card has in Circle of the Moon, where it's the first whip upgrade that you get, but then they follow that up. For some reason, they follow that up immediately with enemies that are resistant to fire. Like the fire-breathing dragon skulls in the Wailing Way, or rather in the Shrine of the Apostates and the Wailing Way, are resistant to fire. But they give you the Firestone first. I think it's supposed to be. I think skeletons maybe are weak to fire, so maybe that's the logic. But like shit, dude. How about you just make the turrets not weak, like not resistant to fire? Would that be so bad? Whatever. Anyway, Bluestone, S tier. Bluestone is S tier because you get it at like the most important, one of the most dangerous parts in the entire game. You get it in the Aqueduct. It does ice damage, which means extra damage to the mermen. So this plus the Nail of Vlad means you can actually get through the mermen in the Aqueduct consistently. And more importantly, the harpies are weak to ice. And now your whip is doing ice damage. Now you can actually kill those fucking harpies in the clock tower. Like, this is so important. I cannot emphasize enough how good the Bluestone is and how impactful it is. And that's why it's above the steel tip, because even though the steel tip is universally useful, like you're never gonna like do any menuing to take it on or off after you get it, it's just not impactful. It's not like the difference between life and death, or between killing something in a certain time frame or not, the way the Bluestone is. So like the Bluestone is just like, that's what makes the difference. That's why the Bluestone is in S tier. The Yellowstone I'm gonna put in A tier, because even though it's not as game-changing as the Bluestone, it actually does still have a serious impact. Because armored enemies are weak to lightning, and armored enemies are the enemies that you have the hardest time killing with your whip. So if you put the Yellowstone on for the caverns, which is where you get it, now you're killing the green knights faster. If you put it on during parts of the clock tower, now you're killing the disc armors faster, and that can be good because those fuckers are seriously dangerous on hard mode. Like the level 2 disc armors will hit you for like 90 or like 105 on hard mode. It's actually insane. And killing them fast is like I just said, extremely important. So it has an impact the way the blue stone does, but it's not as dramatic and immediate and life-saving, because as nice as it is to kill armors faster, armors are not as dangerous as harpies. Or like pink fish dudes. So that's what stops it from being up there with the blue stone. Finally, the Windstone, D tier. It's pretty much as useless as the Redstone, but you get it later, so it's not. So I've never equipped the Windstone. I don't even know what's weak to wind in this game. I can't think of anything that would like. Is there some weird boss that's weak to wind or something? Maybe. I know Talos is resistant to ice, but yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, if I'm wrong about this, and if this is secretly super useful, leave me a message in the cock box, but I think I'm correct in evaluating this as almost worthless. The only reason it's not an F tier with everything else is because it could hypothetically be useful, unlike the energy circle or the bullet tip. So there it is. Every sub-weapon, every spell in Harmony of Dissonance exhaustively ranked with a lot of hemming and hawing and umming and erring. Just like with the Circle the Moon tier list, I don't necessarily consider myself an expert in Harmony of Dissonance. There are things about this game that I do not know. There are tricks I don't know about. There are potential applications of these spells that I don't know about. And like I just admitted, I don't really know all the elemental weaknesses, so I could be wrong about something in this tier list. And if I'm wrong, please let me know in the comments. I love Harmony of Dissonance, and I would always be happy to learn more about this game. And everybody else have a shining diamond in the sky, and don't look out for the other guy.